The rain pounded the roof of the Seattle cabin like 1,000 desperate fists, each drop echoing the chaos in Elias's heart. For years ago, he'd stood in this same spot, trembling through the fever of his heat, wrapped in the arms of a man who promised forever only to vanish by morning. Now, as lightning cracked the sky, Elias clutched his son's tiny hand, wondering if fate was cruel enough to bring him back. Elias had always been an Omega, sensitive and fiercely independent, carving out a quiet life in the Pacific Northwest. The cabin, nestled among towering pines, was his sanctuary, a place where he could raise his son, Milo, away from the judgmental eyes of the world. But that night, for years ago, changed everything. Caleb, an alpha with storm-gray eyes and a voice like warm whiskey, had stumbled into his life during a downpour, seeking shelter. What began as a chance encounter spiraled into 7 days of raw, unshackled passion in Omega's heat, binding them in a way Elias had never known. Caleb had whispered promises of love, of a future together, as their bodies tangled in the firelight. But when the heat broke, so did Elias's heart. Caleb was gone, leaving only a note. "I'm sorry. I can't stay." Now, Elias stood at the cabin's window, watching the storm rage. Milo, 3 years old and blissfully unaware, played with wooden blocks on the rug, his dark curls a mirror of Caleb's. Elias's chest tightened. He'd built a life for them, scraping by as a freelance artist, pouring his pain into vibrant paintings that sold just enough to keep them afloat. He'd learned to live with the ache, to bury the memory of Caleb's touch. But the past had a way of clawing its way back. A knock at the door shattered the silence. Elias froze, his pulse racing. No one came this far out, not in a storm like this. He scooped Milo into his arms, heart hammering, and cracked the door open. There, drenched and unshaven, stood Caleb. His leather jacket clung to his broad shoulders, and those same storm-gray eyes locked onto Elias with a desperation that stole his breath. "Elias," Caleb said, voice rough. "I'm back." The words hit like a punch. Elias's grip on Milo tightened, his instincts screaming to slam the door. But something in Caleb's gaze, grief, maybe, or guilt, held him still. "You don't get to just show up," Elias hissed, his voice low to keep Milo calm. "Not after 4 years. Not after you left us." "I know," Caleb said, stepping closer, rain dripping from his hair. "I was a coward. But I'm here now, and I want to make it right. For you. For him." His eyes flicked to Milo, softening in a way that made Elias's heart lurch. Milo squirmed, oblivious to the tension. "Mama, who's that?" he asked, pointing at Caleb. Elias's throat closed. "Mama." The word he'd embraced when Milo was born, despite the world's raised eyebrows. He'd fought for every inch of their life together. And now Caleb stood there, threatening to unravel it all. "Go play, sweetheart," Elias said, setting Milo down. The boy toddled back to his blocks, and Elias stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. "Why now?" he demanded, arms crossed against the chill. "You didn't want us then. What changed?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "I never stopped wanting you," he said. "I left because I thought I was protecting you. My life, it was a mess. I was running from things you didn't deserve to be dragged into. He took a shaky breath. But I found out about him. Elias. Our son. And I couldn't stay away. Elias laughed bitterly. Our son. You don't get to claim him. You weren't there when I was alone. Pregnant. Scared out of my mind. You weren't there when he was born. When he cried all night. When I had to figure out how to be everything for him. His voice cracked, betraying the hurt he'd buried. You broke me. Caleb. Caleb's face crumpled. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. If you'll let me. The rain slowed to a drizzle. But the air between them crackled with unspoken words. Elias wanted to hate him. To shove him back into the storm. But the memory of those 7 days, the way Caleb's touch had felt like home. The way his laughter had filled the cabin, clung to him. He'd loved Caleb. Fiercely. And part of him still did. Come inside. Elias said finally. His voice barely above a whisper. But this doesn't mean I forgive you. Caleb nodded, stepping past the threshold. The cabin felt smaller with him in it, his presence filling the space like it had 4 years ago. Milo looked up, curious, and Caleb knelt to his level. Hey, little man, he said softly. I'm a friend of your mama's. Milo tilted his head, then held out a block. Play. Caleb's smile was tentative, but it lit something in Elias's chest. He turned away, busying himself with the kettle to hide the tears pricking his eyes. This was dangerous. Letting Caleb in, even for a moment, risked everything he'd built. But as he watched Caleb stack blocks with Milo, a fragile hope stirred. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. The night stretched on, and Caleb stayed. They talked, haltingly at first, over cups of tea. Caleb spoke of the past 4 years running from a dangerous debt, rebuilding his life in Portland, haunted by the family he'd left behind. Elias listened, torn between anger and the pull of their shared history. When Milo fell asleep, Caleb reached for Elias's hand. And for a moment, Elias didn't pull away. I'm not asking for everything, Caleb said. Just a chance to be here. To be a father. To be us. Again. Elias's heart pounded. He wanted to believe it. But trust was a fragile thing. I need time, he said. And you need to prove it. Caleb nodded, his eyes never leaving Elias's. I will. As the storm faded outside, Elias felt a different kind of storm brewing within. This was only the beginning. The Seattle dawn broke soft and gray, casting a muted glow through the cabin's windows. Elias woke to the sound of Milo's laughter, a sound that usually anchored him but now felt like a warning. Caleb was still here, sitting cross-legged on the rug, building a lopsided tower with Milo's blocks. The sight stirred something in Elias, half memory, half fear. For years ago, Caleb's presence had been a wildfire, consuming and fleeting. Now, he was back, and Elias couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully built world was teetering. Over the next few days, Caleb became a quiet fixture in their lives. He didn't push, didn't demand. He chopped wood for the fireplace, fixed a leaky faucet, and read Milo bedtime stories in a voice that made Elias's chest ache. Milo, with his boundless trust, adored him. K-Yub. He'd squeal, tugging Caleb's hand to show him a new toy. Each moment chipped away at Elias's resolve, but the scars of abandonment ran deep. He couldn't let himself fall again, not without answers. One evening, as Milo slept, Elias confronted Caleb on the porch. The air was crisp, scented with pine and the promise of autumn. "You said you were running from something," Elias began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "What was it?" "The truth. Caleb. If you want to be here, I need to know." Caleb leaned against the railing, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. "I was in deep with some bad people," he said. "Debts from my old life before you. I was working construction, but I got mixed up with a crew that wasn't clean. They leaned on me hard. Elias, when I met you, I was already on the run. Those 7 days with you," he paused, his voice breaking. "They were the first time I felt alive. But I knew if I stayed, they'd find me. And you." Elias's breath caught. He'd imagined 1,000 reasons for Caleb's disappearance, another lover, fear of commitment, even disgust at Elias's Omega nature. But this, "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice raw. "I would have fought for you." Caleb's eyes glistened. "I didn't want you to. You deserved better than a life on the run. And when I found out you were pregnant, I thought you'd be safer without me." "Safer?" Elias's voice rose, sharp and bitter. "You left me to raise our son alone. Do you know what that was like? The hospital bills, the sleepless nights, the whispers in town about the Omega with no alpha. You don't get to call that protection." Caleb flinched, but he didn't look away. "I know I failed you. But I'm here now, and I'm not running anymore. I've paid off the debt. I've got a steady job in Portland carpentry. I want to be a father to Milo. And I want you, Elias." I never stopped. The confession hung between them, heavy and fragile. Elias wanted to scream, to push Caleb away. But the sincerity in his voice tugged at the part of him that still burned for those 7 days. He remembered the way Caleb's hands had traced his skin, the way their scents had mingled in the heat. Omega and Alpha bound by something deeper than instinct. But love wasn't enough, not without trust. "I can't just forget," Elias said. "You have to show me you're staying. For Milo. For us." Caleb nodded, stepping closer. "I will. Every day, if you'll let me." The next week tested them both. Caleb stayed, commuting to Portland for work, but returning each night. He brought small gifts, a wooden toy for Milo, a sketch pad for Elias, and shared quiet moments that felt like a bridge to their past. One night, as they washed dishes together, their hands brushed, and Elias didn't pull away. The touch sent a jolt through him, a reminder of what they'd been. But when Caleb leaned in, eyes searching, Elias stepped back. "Not yet," he whispered. "I'm not ready." Caleb's face fell, but he nodded. "I'll wait." The tension grew, a dance of longing and restraint. Elias saw the effort Caleb put in, how he listened to Milo's endless stories, how he asked about Elias's art with genuine interest. But doubt lingered. What if Caleb ran again? What if this was just another fleeting heat, destined to fade? Then, one afternoon, everything shifted. Elias was in town, picking up groceries, when a stranger approached him, a man with a scar across his cheek and a voice like gravel. "You're Elias, right?" "Caleb's Omega." The man's smile was cold. "Heard he's back. Tell him he can't hide forever." Fear gripped Elias's heart. He rushed home, Milo in tow, and found Caleb waiting. "Who are they?" Elias demanded, voice shaking. "You said the debt was paid." Caleb's face paled. "It was. I swear. But some people, they don't let go." He reached for Elias. But this time, Elias didn't let him close the distance. "You brought this to us," Elias said, his voice breaking. "To Milo." "I'll fix it," Caleb promised, his eyes fierce. "I won't let them touch you." As night fell, Elias held Milo close, the weight of Caleb's past pressing against their fragile hope. He wanted to believe in second chances, but the shadows were closing in. The cabin felt like a fortress under siege, every creak of the floorboards a threat. Elias kept Milo close, his small body curled against him as they sat by the fire. Caleb paced, phone in hand, making calls to old contacts, his voice low and urgent. The stranger's words echoed in Elias's mind. He can't hide forever. Whatever Caleb had left behind wasn't done with Heimer. By morning, Caleb had a plan. "I know who they are," he said, his face haggard but resolute. "The last of the crew I owed. They think I've got something they want, a ledger I never had. I'm going to meet them. Elias. End this." Elias's heart stopped. "You're leaving again." "No," Caleb said fiercely. "I'm coming back. I'm doing this for you and Milo." He knelt, taking Elias's hands. "I know I broke your trust once, but I'm not that man anymore. Let me prove it." Elias wanted to argue, to beg him to stay, but the fear in his chest was outweighed by something else, hope. He nodded, throat tight. "Be careful." Caleb left at dawn, promising to return by nightfall. The hours dragged, each one heavier than the last. Elias painted to keep his hands busy, his brushstrokes frantic, pouring his fear and longing onto the canvas. Milo, sensing the tension, clung to him, asking for Caleb. Elias's heart ached. He'd fought so hard to protect Milo, to be enough. But now, he couldn't deny the bond forming between his son and Caleb, the one rekindling in his own heart. When Caleb returned, bruised but whole, relief flooded Elias so fiercely he nearly collapsed. "It's over," Caleb said, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I gave them what they wanted, nothing but the truth. They're gone." Elias clung to him, tears falling. "You came back." "Always," Caleb whispered. The days that followed were a quiet reckoning. Caleb moved into the cabin, not as a lover, but as a partner, sharing the weight of their life. He built a swing for Milo, helped Elias with his art shows, and slowly, piece by piece, rebuilt trust. One night, under a starlit sky, Elias let Caleb kiss him. It was soft, tentative, but it carried the weight of 4 years apart and the promise of a future together. Their scents mingled, Omega and Alpha, and for the first time, Elias felt whole. Years later, at Milo's 7th birthday, the cabin was filled with laughter. Elias watched Caleb chase their son through the yard, both of them grinning, and felt a warmth that had once seemed impossible. They'd faced the shadows of the past, fear, doubt, and danger, and emerged stronger. Caleb had stayed, not just for Milo, but for the family they'd built, proving that love could mend what time had broken. As the sun set, Elias leaned against Caleb, their hands entwined. 7 days started this, he murmured. But this is forever. Caleb smiled, kissing his forehead. Forever. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was there's a testament to second chances, to the courage it took to love again, and to the family they'd fought for. In the quiet of the Pacific Northwest, they'd found home.